So I think the market's discounted this already mainly, and that the low potentially is in, because what will be happening in 12 months' time? In 12 months' time, we will have seen a recession and we will likely be coming out of it. Whether we're fully out of it or not, doesn't matter. A recession at some point in the future means that the Federal Reserve will stop hiking and will stop shrinking the balance sheet. And they will probably go towards cutting. In the future, in 12 months' time, the probability of inflation being, at 8% is extremely low because of the year-on-year computational differences and the fact that oil, copper, freight rates, everything has come down massively. So I'm thinking that there is a probability that inflation goes negative within 18 months. So if we look out 12 months, the recession is behind us, rates are lower, and inflation is low. Okay, so that is a very good outcome for risk assets and crypto. Crypto bottomed in June. We had the retest. Bitcoin had a retest only 2 days ago, and I think it was the retest. So my DMARC indicators, which I use mainly for my technical analysis, gave me that signal. ETH had a much stronger signal in June, and I started finding as much money as I could under the sofa anywhere to start investing, adding to my positions. I never sold anything. So I'm thinking the markets are forward looking. I think the sentiment is extremely bearish, and we're going into a potential change in the macro. Does it happen this month, next month? Don't really care. Then we've got the ETH merge, which we all know about. I don't think it brings fireworks. Maybe it does. Maybe there's a big sell-off after it, big sell-off beforehand. I don't really know. And again, I don't really care. What I do know is that post-merge, a few things happen. There are no miners to sell every day. That's about 6 billion that just disappears from selling each month. Okay, so that's a difference. Then we've got the reduction in supply, but that's really driven by the increase in network activity. So we need to kind of see the network go up a lot. For that to really kick in, it become deflationary, but it's less inflationary. So there's less ETH around, but then we've got this magic. The magic is you've just introduced yield into the ETH ecosystem in a secure way. So therefore, because it's a protocol level. So therefore, this is going to attract new people into the ecosystem who want to get ETH for yield. So you've got a demand shock. Also the lack of the ESG restrictions that people have with Bitcoin, falsely so, but I understand that that's the mandate people have got. So you've got people who are frustrated who wanted to invest but couldn't because of ESG and Bitcoin. The ETH merge, they're waiting for it to happen. ETH now has a yield. A lot of institutions don't own gold because it doesn't have a yield. So you've got this technology asset that represents a big, exciting future with a yield, with a limited supply. So that has and a macro that's changing. That to me suggests the next 12 months probably very, very good for digital assets. So that's at the basic level. And then I'm trying to think through, okay, in a new world where ETH is this very important asset, it's still going to have problems. It's still going to be expensive and it's still going to be slow. So as adoption keeps building, a lot of adoption spills outside of the ETH into the Solana, Avalanche, and a bunch of other protocols as well. So I think we're going to see ETH lead the charge, and then we'll see this tail of stuff starting to come as we start a new bull market. And generally things work that way. So I think a lot of these layer ones this time around will be like ETH in the last cycle. They'll end up becoming very large dominant change. Which ones? Yeah. Don't really know. My bet's really on Solana, but it could be any of these, and I'm kind of indifferent right now. Solana's, as I said, I got more allocated towards that than I have to some of the others, but I'm watching them and waiting to see. I've had also technically a perfect monthly, daily, weekly DMARC setup in the Solana ETH cross. Now, I'm not yet ready to make the bet that I would switch my ETH into Solana, but I have some. But I'm observing that to say, let's see if that plays out, because that will be a narrative that people don't really expect. And I'm not saying that Solana becomes bigger than ETH or anything of that sort. I'm just saying, could it outperform in this cycle? So I think we're at the new cycle point. The logarithmic chart, we got to the 2 standard deviations oversold. Everybody knows the on-chain metrics. We've got the perfect setup. Is it today? Is the low in? I would give it an 80% probability, but there's a 20% chance it's not. So I'm very focused right now on watching the price structure. And the final thing to give you is the big one for me is ETH breaking about the 2000 level. That would give us an inverted head and shoulders low, and also there's a downtrend from the high, and it would have then broken a wedge pattern to the upside, and that would be the start of the run to new highs whenever that occurs. Since I first discovered Bitcoin in 2013, been of the opinion that this was a parallel financial system that's being built. In the last 18 months, I've realized that it's bigger than just a financial system. It's in fact the entire system of value, transfer, storage, and ownership in the new digital world. It is probably one of the biggest things I've ever heard of or seen, and it is an incredibly exciting moment in time to be part of it. And it's like learning about the discovery of oil when the Rockefellers and all of these guys started figuring out that the oil was going to make the world go round. Had you been an investor and a participant and understood what it could do and what businesses you could build across the network of oil or the mobile phone or the internet, the fortunes that were made, the changes that happened, was so staggering, and this is happening faster, and at the very center of it is a system of money and value, which means that in itself it is going to accrue value faster than anything else, because that's what it's actually doing, is taking value from old places and putting it into a new place. So the opportunity set is so big, and it is that perfect nexus of macro and crypto, because the macro is which we've known for so long, the massive debt, the bad demographics, polarization of the world again, the deglobalization, the globalization, all the mess that caused. All of that is going on in macro land, which is pretty miserable. And here's the solution in front of our eyes. I mean, what a time to be alive. And that's why it's so important. Everybody needs to understand this stuff. Whether you're trading this stuff, building businesses, or you're just observing it, it is incredibly, incredibly important. Firstly, we're all learning together, as you made the point, and none of us know the answers. If we all learn together and we all learn at the same speed, that's just nice. It's nice to have a community. It's nice to have questions, people to ask. I don't know everything, far from it. There's a load of things I'll be dead wrong on. Some things I'll miss entirely. It's not my job. My job is to set everybody in the right course, and let's figure out. That's why I speak to people like Yatsui about what he's seeing, or I just got off the phone with John Wu from Avalanche, and I spoke to Anatoly from Solana, and I'm so privileged in getting to speak to people. And if I can share my learning as I'm chatting to these people saying, hey, what's going on in your ecosystem? How does this work? How are you seeing network adoption? How are you thinking about the future? What opportunities are you seeing? And everyone can watch over my shoulder, then we all go together. And then the Ask Me Anythings are a way of us being able to chat about it. As you said with the railroad, with the oil stocks, and it was the same with the railroad stocks. These were really important networks that got built. Tons of stuff failed. There was tons of excess speculation. The United States would not be the United States without the railroad network or the oil network or the phone networks. So this is how big these things are. Let's figure out where the main opportunities may lie, because this one, unlike those, the average person can participate in on a pretty much equal footing, because you're part of the network by owning a token. Even take into account NFTs and all of the changes that smart contracts bring, which is a whole nother mind-expanding world out there. The way that I form an opinion, and everybody should, is you listen to a lot of broad-based opinions. Sure, you can take the crackpots off from either side, but listen to a broad base of opinions. Like there's some really interesting opinions on why the ETH merge might be a mistake. You don't ignore them. You take them on board, and then you weight them yourself. How important is that to me? Not sure. Very important. This is terrifying. I don't really care. That's okay. But having people's opposite opinions, differences, nuances, it's really important with a macro scenario. Just because I tell you what I think doesn't mean I'm right.